Hello there, Matt here. Today we have some special lovely new patch notes to look at for Spellforce 3 Versus Edition. And I hope to do it quicker this time, so we're gonna jump right into it, so it's not a 40-minute videos, because there are a lot of changes. So I'm gonna try to get through to them. So we're just gonna jump straight in. Above there's just technical issues and some thank yous, but the meat of the matter is starting with the humans, you have the Royal Match. Absorb the elements, increase duration from 20 to 25 seconds, which makes me very happy. Absorb the elements is very powerful. Basically gives you have like fire and ice stacks. Ice stacks give you, ice stacks I think give you the cleave, and fire gives you the ability power as well as damage and additional targets hit. So 5 seconds more of that is great. So if you trigger absorb the elements before you put down a blizzard as well as a comet or meteor, what it's called, you get additional ability power out of it. So this is a very nice buff for Royal Mage users here. Incinerate level 1 now deals 70 damage to adjacent targets and 50 damage to the initial target. So it's a little bit of an AoE build. I haven't quite worked out a build on where to use it yet. It seemed weak from my testing, but I think it was probably because I mixed and matched. But if you focus on it, it could be kind of good. Hailstorm Range now increased by 30, makes it safer, makes it easier to use, and makes your hero all in all a bit safer. So basically, Incinerate and Hailstorm are like long range abilities now. So if you want to forgo the Fire Nova, that might be now something you can do. And just generally increase attack range. Again, synergizes with absorb the elements in the late game to up to 150, which makes it easier for him to pick off stuff. Wolfguard, Fatal Blow, that's a quality of life thing we've now seen on many of the melee commanders. So they're now based on weapon range damage, so you can actually interrupt things without it glitching out on you. So if you can hit it, if your hero is already hitting it, you can hit the ability. Himsguard reduced focus cost from 12 to 10, so that's the auras. So if you have all three, that's 6 reduced focus, which is quite a lot. So that's also nice because she is very, very focus hungry. Buildings now finally got buffed. So Aya Distillery, more health. Barracks, more health without upgraded, and the upgraded even more. Also, upgraded barracks are now basically half as expensive, which makes the switch a lot easier on your economy. Get double value, and the billets also you gain 15 to up from 15 to 20 population cap that you get, so you don't have to build as many. So just all in all, just eco buffs essentially. Hunting cabin, that's a fix we're gonna see for pretty much all the races. The processing time just got reduced because on a lot of them, on maximum workers, they were gathering more hunt than they could process, so you wouldn't actually get anything out of that additional worker. So you will feel a difference now on most factions in the food income early game. So that will be pretty nice. And Forge again for pretty much every faction except Trolls because they don't have one. All the way down from 20 wood, 20 stone to 5 wood and stone. And that's pretty much across the board. Everybody has now a way easier time to get their technologies out. And some quick market fix on the icons not being in line. Apparently that's already been an issue. And here's a very nice buff to the humans. The Mentalists increase damage from 60 to 75. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a small AoE. It's magic damage, so a lot of units take even more damage from it. And keep in mind, if you buff that with the Flag Bearer on top as it's intended, that's even more damage. So like extra 13 damage essentially. Reduce cost from 5 wood, 10 food, 3 iron to 4 wood, 8 food, 3 iron. So the Griffin's gone through a little bit of an eco rebalance, so isn't as much a drain on your normal economy, but the iron increase from the old patch still stands. Also gets a little bit of more damage. Same issue again, magic damage, so on most units that's going to be increased as well. They did get a little bit of a health nerf since they're a bit spammable now again, so we'll see how that pans out. But should open up some nice new strats. And champions as well got a iron reduction, which is nice. And they got a hit point increased by 100, which doesn't sound like a lot, but again, with flag bearers back on top of them, now easier to spam. It's just a really nice buff to humans in general. So I definitely recommend giving the humans a new shakeout. And keep in mind, just generally easier to spam things now, or like just get anything out because of the food fix for everybody. Druid, Treant's Grasp, impair effect reduced from 40% to 25%. But here's the big one. Treant's Grasp area of effect range from 90 to 120, and if you know how diameters work, that's a lot bigger, massive area. As well as Ellen's Wrath, Nature's Gift, and Ellen's Fire all go up to the 120 as well. So he can't keep people in place as strongly anymore. On the beta there was a bug where the level 2 wasn't affected, and it was basically ridiculous. But now you can walk out of it, but you can cordon off a much larger area. And with all your skills combined, he's going to be quite insane, while not being as hard on the lockdown anymore. But if you get Neura's command on certain map, it's still going to be a hell of a big slow. Ranger got the damage reverted back from 140 to 150 under Hail of Arrows, so has an easier time to contest Goblin Spam, etc. But the Spectral Wolf got a little bit of a health reduction to make the early game a little bit less oppressive, and it makes it easier to get rid of it. Buildings, farm reduced processing time from 21 seconds to 18 seconds, so another food buff, pretty much similar reasons. The values are going to be different, but basically everybody who has farms will get the same treatment as well again. Hunting cabins as well, processing time from 8 seconds to 5 seconds. And Smithy, the forge for the elves, also down to 5 wood, 5 stone. So just generally more access to tech, and a really nice one. Iron Mine is now from 60 seconds for the poor elves, at least down to 50. It's still very long, but it's at least a little bit of a buff. And the Druid, I think this is a bit of a sleeper. The passive healing effectiveness is now doubled, which is then up to 10 health per second, which does work in combat. So if as long as he's on his aggressive mode, these are, by the way, the Druids from, not the hero unit, but the buildable Druids. So you get now, like, in 10 seconds, you can get 100 health on all your units around them back. So this is now a definite incentive to put them in your tier 2 builds, in my opinion. Now, Orcs have been very popular and strong with the Goblin Shaman, so the Totemic Might has dropped significantly. So the Totemic Might healing, which was the level 3 of it, went down from 15 HP per second to 77.5 HP per second, which is a lot more reasonable, especially since you can get the healing totem on top of it, which also got a slight tick nerf here. So we'll see how that shakes out. Lacerate as well gets the weapon range changed, which is very nice. Buildings. The Iron Mine increased build time now finally doubled. It was so annoying that they were extremely cheap for Orcs, and they had them back like in 15 seconds, whereas everybody else had to wait at least 35, and elves even a minute if you got rid of them. So 30 seconds still pretty quick, but at least it's gonna delay their iron timings a little bit. Bloodforge, tech building again, down to 5 wood, 5 stone. So easier access to your tech, which opens up a lot of strategies. Shaman Hut now got increased in wood and stone, so that gives slightly harder access to shamans, as well as the totem spells themselves, if you want to research those. Did get a little bit of a health buff. War Pit, Wrath of the Horde. So that's the, as far as I know, yeah, that's the Goblin one. So down from 5 wood, 30 stone, 15 food to 5 wood, 15 stone, 15 food. So a 15 stone reduction. So you can go hard for the Goblin build in the beginning with Drummers and Pesterers, if you so choose. And I believe that you can also tag that at tier 1, so you don't have to have tier 2 for that. Strength in numbers. This get a cost increase because it was a very powerful upgrade, so now it gets a 5 iron cost attached to it, so it's not as easy to just, it's a no-brainer, get strength in numbers, get your hunters out, you get the best of both worlds. So now if you want at least the early goblins, or like earlier hunters, you have to sacrifice a couple goblins for it, which is nice, or delay some of your hunters if you want that front line. Call of the Pack, cost reduced from, which I believe is the one with Shamans and Ravagers. No, apologies, I think 5 foot, 15 foot. Yeah, this is the one, this is the Goblin one, the Call of the Pack, I think, since it is so cheap. So you can get that now a lot earlier, as we've discussed the buff here. So Wrath of the Horde then is, I think, the Ravager one. Or the Hunter one. Oh well, it's gonna be one of them. But basically, that got a little bit cheaper. Goblin Pesterer has now reduced cost from 6 food 3 stone to 5 food 2 stone. So we'll see how that checks out. I've heard many people saying it's still not enough, even though they got the base damage increased from 16 to 20, which is relatively significant, especially since you can buff that up with your drummers on top. So we'll see if there's going to be some builds developing from that, rather than going for the iron units. Maybe a hard goblin rush into more high-tech units rather than hunters, especially if you're going for goblin playstyles. Drummer also got a little bit of a reduction, so down to 5 food 3 wood, so they're cheaper to get out to buff your guys up. Wyvern, now it's a lot easier to just kite with them, since you don't have to wait ages for them to actually attack. And they get a new icon. Same as the Scoundrels also got a new icon, which is nice. Brute got a health nerf, pretty well deserved, because they are damn tanky, especially after their upgrades for such an early unit, as well as the utility you can get out of them. Just sieging stuff down, as well as just frontline. And here's the big one that should shake up the meta a bit. The Ravages Resistances, they had earlier 0 strike, 0 pierce, 75 siege, and 0 magic. Now they have 25 strike, 25 pierce, which, keep in mind, the upgrades of the Orcs give you up plus, I think it's plus 15 in total if you get the last one on tier 3. So that's some significant defenses, but they're now more susceptible to magic damage. They still have some of the highest DPS for any unit in the game. It's 120 strike damage unupgraded on a ridiculous short attack hunt. And their upgrade, which just gives them a bit of speed, is now just 10 iron instead of 5 iron, 5 black ash. So it's easier to get. Then you can make proper Saruman hunting packs. The Dark Elves, Guardian of Honor, got the quality of life change, which is nice. And all the sacrifices got the area of effect up to 120. So that a sacrifice build definitely is now worth it, in my opinion. It was already. But now we might see a late game soul charge build. Since on late game it does give you 30% movement speed as well as 30% attack speed on max power, keep in mind. So early game I think it's not worth it. But late game, I think we could see a specialized build for that. At least I want to try one. That has me pretty excited. Hunting Cabin as well now actually will benefit from its last worker, because it can process all the food it's been given. Forge down to 5 wood, 5 stone. Just big deal for the Dark Elves. Don't need the stone income isn't very strong to begin with, and the wood is just needed everywhere. So much nicer. And the blitz attack for the Infiltrators now down from 10 souls to just 10 wood and 10 food. So I kind of want to see some harassment Infiltrators coming up. So just small groups of 4, maybe 6 Infiltrators going to research spot and then relocating when they get under pressure, or just use it to dodge meteors, etc. Strider upgrade now finally 15 iron 10 souls, because before it was cheaper than some of the tier 2 upgrades, which was a bit silly considering how strong they are. And Plague Beetle got a little bit of love as well. 2 less food to produce each one of them, since they did get nerfed last patch. They're still good units, but they were pretty expensive now for what they did. So this will definitely help them out. Sleeper now also have an increased strike resist. So they just get 25 strike resist, still retain their 25 PS, and 0 magic. It's like the Dark Elf shtick. Most of the higher tech stuff doesn't have negative magic resist compared to everybody else. And the Spectre Whale, so that's the upgraded whale, I believe, is the radius from 100 to 150, which is really huge. That's a 25% slow across a really huge. That's like a quarter of your screen, essentially 150. So comboing that, for example, with a Spider Sleeper Chase Down with the new increased radius of soul charge, that has me very excited against certain builds. For example, Orcs, so they can't run away as effective and have to actually trade and bleed. So I'm looking forward to that. Broodfather, reduce summoning costs by quite a lot. 25 less souls. Okay, it's no, they actually just reduced by 25 souls. So a little bit better to get out. And now a little bit of more of a punch to their attack if they can attack at all. So they have 150 pure damage now. Plus they have a dot debuff that makes the target explode if it's been affected. So you get a little bit of AoE out of them as well. So maybe we see some Brute Daddy plays. I'd like it. High Hierophant gets a lot of love here. So the Totem of Silence duration decreased from 30 seconds to 20. So that's among all the totems. And as well as the cooldown decreased from 30 seconds to... That should be 20 seconds. I'm pretty sure they just haven't adjusted the patch notes here. Just to reflect the duration. But the Totem of Flames, now the base damage is 25 to 35. Healing has increased radius as well as... But... increased radius, but half the health. And the cleansing now gives you comes up at level 2, which can be pretty good against certain builds like Reaper, Dark Elves, Trolls. Everybody that debuffs a cleansing totem could be pretty handy. And puts it back up to 25 HP per second, so more reliable, but a little bit less potent in general. Totem Infusion also got a ranged increase. So 120 is a pretty big chunk. So she doesn't... That's like, I think, 2/3 of her attack range, roughly, that you have to be close to the Totem Infusion to get that off. Warrior of the Deeps doesn't get any reworks, but at least he got the quality of life, so you can actually hit things, which is nice. And I've actually recently lost a game, a really, really good game to the Warrior of the Deeps. So he's just super hard to play, and it's hard to get value out of him. But if you do, he's pretty hilarious. Also the Charburner now processes wood in batches of 2, before it was 3, so that should increase your wood income. So you don't have to collect as much before it gets processed. The Stonecutters have been a little bit adjusted because they were overperforming compared to other races' base income. And the carry capacity is reduced for the Stonecutters themselves. What that means is same stone per minute in smaller batches, so you get more regular income, but less of a burst. But I think that's still... I do believe the same stone is for the carry capacity, not for the worker efficiency, so it should overall still be 25% roughly slower. But Dwarves have still a very strong economy in terms of stone. As far as I know. Don't play them that much, but yeah, get the farm treatment, so the farms are performing a bit better. Same as the hunting cabin for them, it's even better, 8 seconds to 5 seconds. Workshop as well, down to 5/5. In this case charcoal, of course, which is just wood. And here's a big one. So the protective shield upgrade from 15 charcoal and 5 iron to 10 charcoal, 5 stone, 5 food. So no iron required. You can get that immediately upon hitting tier 2. And then pump out those earth shapers, who also don't cost iron. The shield is now only 20%. It was 25%, but with the focus upgrade that you get later on in the game, if they're on full focus, starting that out, it lasts a 30 seconds, 20% shield of pierce and strike damage in a pretty big area, so that's a juicy one. As well, keep in mind they can all the while they're in that stance, they can still attack with their magic damage, which has now been buffed to 80 from 60 up. So that's pretty hot. And fire golems got a bit of love, so they don't get nuked out by ranged as hard. 25 pierce resistance should help them out a bit. Plaguebringer for the trolls now got a bit of a rework. Plague disease, nice quality of life, 15 to 22 radius. That's much easier to hit multiple targets with him. Before it was like maximum 3. Now it's a lot more reliable to get those 3 and maybe more. And the corpse explosion has been adjusted, which has been quite hyped. So each affected corpse now regenerates a single projectile targeting the nearest enemy for 150 damage. So you kind of have to... So you can either use it, for example, when a hero retreats or coming towards you and there's a lot of corpses below him. If you put it on that, it basically will just all conglomerate on that hero and nuke him out of existence. Or if the enemy's units are saturated on top of a lot of corpses, they will all go to the closest. At least that's how it should work. We'll see how effective it is in practice. So should be very good against swarm enemies. Probably not that good against other trolls, but maybe against other trolls as well. We'll see. It is magic damage, so that has me quite excited. We'll see how that plays out. And Infected Orb, which I think is just a Plague Orb. So targets around the selected target are now infected by individual orbs. Before it was like a Chain Lightning, but a very slow one. And it deals 100 base damage, plus 100 damage for Plague Disease 1, and plus 200 for Plague Disease 2. Which is now also easier to apply thanks to the increased area of effect. So we'll see how that plays out, but it sounds pretty strong. So finally, like a bit of an AoE hero that can do that safely. Chieftain, the train spells now have a 2-second cast time, so you can't really quickly save a dying troll immediately if you have the cast ready. And the slam area of effect raise of level 2 is down from to 100 from 120, because you could get ridiculous value out of it. But it was also satisfying if you could. So the Chieftain era has been a bit nerfed, but the Plaguebringer is back on the menu, boys. For the trolls, so basically all troll units gain now a little bit more experience, because you could end up struggling on low XP maps to get value against trolls, because it's hard to kill them in the first place, and then you don't get that much XP from them. While he just slams your entire goblin line and levels up every 2 minutes, basically. Wallbreakers finally got a movement speed reduction only to 45. We'll see if that's enough. It might just end up keeping them safer because they don't run in first anymore. But at least you might be able to catch them with some things. Throwers, damage dealt on additional targets now down from 20 to 10. So basically insignificant scatter damage. So basically they hit the main target and then like I think 2 targets to the side. And it's mostly used to apply the upgrade, the debuff, the resistance debuff to multiple targets. Smasher now down by 100 health. That's has been pretty noticeable and significant, so just pure Smasher spam isn't gonna cut the cookie as reliably anymore, which is pretty good to see. Makes the counterplay in conjunction with the more XP as an incentive for the troll to actually tech up and get some beefier stuff out. Also gives him a bigger difference to the Skull Crusher upgrade. Spike Flinger has received yet another attack range reduction, so down to 170. And Bone Hexer got a little... yeah, that's a nerf. So you got 5 more magic damage, but the leech got reduced by 10, which was pure damage, as well as, of course, leeching life. So they're not as self-sustainable, especially on high stacks anymore, against multiple targets. And we have received some map changes, which is pretty hype. So Windwall Forest, I'm gonna get them wrong, I guess. But the food amount in some sectors is from 100 to 150, and 75 to 100 in the mid sectors. And the tier 3 amount in the mid sector with the golem is down to 500. I think that's the orange pumpkin map. Grapekeep Gardens swapped eastern and southern creep corridors to equalize creeping paths. So now both end up basically this way instead of both going in the same direction. While and the problem with that was that the lower right side had then the wall in front of it to the wyvern, while the top left side didn't. So the top left side would technically have an easier time to grab the corner sector. Nobody ever used it that way, but it was, or at least not by on purpose. But it's nice that got adjusted now. Iron is now equal in both middle sectors. I didn't even realize that, I'll be honest. I didn't even realize that they were different, but 350 in both. As well as the corner sectors. If you lose the middle, you now have the option for going to the corner and get a lot more value out of that. Because 200 was a little bit low, and 400 is now a pretty good incentive and a comeback mechanic if you lost the middle. And a bit sad, the scrap files now got basically adjusted, so they're placed now in sectors and you get 3 on each side, so they're not anymore on the side lanes where you could harass them, which nobody ever did. But apparently enough people got pissed off about it that it's kind of sad. It was a bit of a flavor on the map. Would have made for some like scout play, could have been a thing. But we'll see how it plays out. Old Battlegrounds, the wyvern in the middle is gone. And the hard group of skeletons that was up the stairs from the wyvern now got moved into the middle. Unfortunately, the wyvern is not up there, so overall the map XP has decreased. But the middle is now not as triggering anymore if you get zapped by accident. Fortress Stoneguard, misplaced Stone Depot in the northeastern. I forgot to check that, so I'm not quite sure how much of a difference that makes. Mystic Valley, added food to the middle sector. Yeah, that's the one where you just had you had the 4 wyverns in the middle, like in the side sectors, and then in the middle is just the Titan spawn and nothing else. So you just ended up spamming farms there. So that at least now has 150. No, not 150. Sorry, 300 food actually in the middle, and the ones with the wyverns do have 100 now. So there's wood, iron, like shit tons of iron, and food there. So another incentive to go for them. Middle sectors now have 150 food on Wasteland of Zoo, so makes it a lot more accessible for dwarves, some races, like anybody who just needs a lot of food. Will get a lot more value out of that. And all middle sector creeps are now Medusae. Meduseld. The capital of Rohan. Okay, yeah, basically that just got equalized, so like the southeastern doesn't have a random skeleton camp there, which can be troublesome for certain races. Or easier as well, compared to our snaky ladies. And getting 150 food out of each of one of them is pretty nice. I still find it a really weird map, especially if you get locked out of the middle. If you need to transition to tier 3, you're kind of buggered. So it's still not my favorite map. And they have removed the zombie spawn. Oh, they made a bandit spawn now. Oh no, sorry. The southwestern creeps, the one on the side sectors, for some reason had a zombie spawn and a bandit swarm. No, the southwestern had 2 zombies, and the southeastern had the zombie bandit combo. And now both have zombie bandits. So the southwestern guy doesn't have an easier time. And the main base skeleton creeps that were usually always pulled in with a scout have been removed. I believe these are older and campaign maps. So yeah, these are pretty good changes. Basically everybody has now smoother transitions. You have a lot more access to tech across the guard. The Royal Mage will now see, I think he's really good now. He was good beforehand, but now he's really good. The quality of life is going to be nice for the Fatal Blow, so we might actually see that used later on in the game as well. And generally, Human Tier 3 definite buff. Also Human Tier 2, now a little bit more punch. But I think the real strength of humans is now in their Tier 3. Keep in mind, humans Tier 3, a lot of people think it's weak, but it's really not. But it's a combined arms effort. So the teching is a bit something you have to get used to. You need to get the flag bearers out early. You need multiples of those because you want them on defensive stance and on aggressive stance, because one gives you 25 pierce and slash resistance for your front line, as well as, and the other one gives you I think it's either as well 25 or even 30 ability power, which also works on your hero, by the way. So you really want multiples of those. I always go for at least 4 in a big army. And then you have the champions. Like, champions go up to a lot of defense with that, especially if you go for a Wolf God Aura build switch in the late game. They can get over 50% resistances while they have cleave and everything and being buffed up. Same with the Mentalists in the backline. So you always want to have 2 of your flag bearers in the backline to buff those up for damage. But definitely powerful. Elves, Druid is gonna be my boy still. He's still gonna be very powerful. Rangers has a little bit more crowd control now. And especially like the economy is just gonna be overall a bit nicer, just like for everybody else. And we might see some spicy Druids now. The Goblin Shaman got definitely nerfed. We'll see if the overbearing economy is fixed. And it does open up a lot more play styles. I have been rushed by Ravagers pretty effectively on the test games we've done. The Pesturers and Goblins. We'll see if that's enough to bring them up to the forefront, but maybe it was worth going into them if you want to stall for something late game, like Wyverns and Trolls. And make the Brutes a little bit less attractive. But they're still very, very good. So the Orcs should have a lot more avenues to go for. We'll see how much it does, or how experimental people are. Dark Elves. As well, tech a big thing. We have the Infiltrators now. Probably we'll see some harass with them, as well as Beetles having a bit of an easier time. Sleepers should now have, against certain matchups, they will have a place now with the strike resistance. And I'm really excited for the Whale into Soul Charge combo. I hope some people make it a specialty. Maybe I'll make it mine. Not sure if it's going to be competitive enough, but I'm excited. Dwarves, only the Warrior of the Depths being left alone again. But Farlon has been out there championing him. And I have lost a legitimate good game against it already on live. And the totem buffs, we'll see if that gets picked. I'm surprised to not see a barrage cooldown nerf here, because it can still shotgun. As either remove the shotgun or get a cooldown nerf, because the cooldown is what makes it ridiculous, really, with the massive AoE. But we're gonna see a lot more protective shield Earthshapers. It's really gonna help them out in the mid game. Stay on the field, don't bleed as many of the axe wielders, get more value out of them. Pretty hyped for that. And fire golems are a bit chunkier, so you can mix them more in as brawlers rather than just pure siege. Plaguebringer should be back on the menu. Chieftain still perfectly viable. That's just proper nerfs that were deserved, in my opinion. But they will have to not be just smasher spam anymore. So troll players really have to get into fast attacks, in my opinion. We'll see if it nerfs their early smasher aggression while not gimping them too hard in the long run. And the map changes should keep things fresh. So, hope you enjoyed that. I hope... How long have we been on? We've been... Damn it, it's still a half an hour goddamn patch video. So, there we are. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope I gave you some ideas on how to utilize these patch notes. Get out there, ladder. The game does need a player base. So please jump back in on the leaderboards. We need you to keep the game alive and support it. And otherwise, good games. Have a fun time. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.